is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In Podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
I am Brent Jackson.
Brent, today our guest is Corey Burr. Corey Burr is with TTR Sotheby's, International Realty here in Washington, D.C., DMV area. Sorry, I'm just jumping right in. I'm just going
Right for it. I like it.
Because Corey's an important guy.
Yes,
and
he is busy.
We have a lot to talk about. We were just talking before we even started, and let's just start the show. Let's just get going. So Corey, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you both. It's an honor to be here.
Corey, we always start off, just tell us a little about your career. You've been in the career of real estate for over 30 years.
Yes.
So tell us how you got started in real estate, and do you have family in real estate?
I did,
Okay.
Yes. So my father was with IBM in the late 50s and 60s, very successful. His main client was the state of North Carolina in Raleigh, and they asked him to move up to New York and climb the corporate ladder, and he just had no interest in doing that. So he contacted his fraternity brother and roommate from Duke, Charles Pardo, who had a commercial real estate company here in Washington, Barnes, Morris, and Pardo. And my father said, how about if I start up the residential side of your commercial real estate company? So it was called Burr, Morris, and Pardo, and it was founded in 1968. So I was 5 years old at the time, and I essentially grew up in a real estate household. I saw how my dad interacted, how hard he worked, like 7 days a week. And I got my license actually as my senior project in high school, if you can imagine that. The timing worked out perfectly. It was like a 3-week period. I took the principal's class at the University of Maryland from a veteran agent. I think her name was Lee Frew Pratt. And I think at the time I was the youngest licensed agent in the state of Maryland. I worked a couple summers in college doing condominium conversions in the district. But my true love was stocks and investments, and I didn't think that I was going to be doing this, as a career. But my senior year at Duke, my parents called me and said that my dad had cancer, and it was pretty aggressive. And so they spent 7 years trying to get him clean enough to qualify for a bone marrow operation.
7 years, a long time.
7 years, from 1985 to 1992.
Wow.
The great news is that they did it. He had the bone marrow operation at Hopkins in 92, became cancer-free, and passed away 21 years later, unrelated to the cancer.
That's an awesome story.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's awesome.
So, but at the height of that, it didn't look like he was going to make it. So in 1987, my older brother and I spoke about what to do to help Dad. And he had very little interest in being in real estate. And I thought it would be terrific if Dad survived. We'd be partners. And if he didn't, then I would take on his company, which at the time had about 20 agents and was very successful, a one-office boutique firm in Chevy Chase. And obviously, as I just said, he survived, and we were partners until he passed away in 2013.
Wow.
That's awesome working with your dad.
Yes, really terrific. Couldn't have had a better mentor.
Yeah.
And also for him also to be sort of like a true veteran and originator of like DC real estate sales. I mean, to have started so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm sure he knew everyone.
He knew everyone. And
Yeah.
at the time, there was a kind of a rag magazine called Dossier. And each year they would rank the 50 most powerful people in the city. And he, for years, was like the one realtor on the list. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So at an early age, you're in high school and you decide to take the real estate exam. Is this 100% your decision, or is there any pushing from your dad? I mean, we have little kids now. That's something that I struggle with. Like, I like my little guy to play tennis, but right now he's taking a break from tennis. And, we had a discussion on that, but it was like his decision to do it against my decision. But like with you in real estate, that was all you, or was your dad pushing a little bit?
So I'd say there was some gentle pushing on that. And it was more like, I don't want you to, be in real estate. It was more like, it's a great thing to have a real estate license because it opens another opportunity for you should you choose to pursue it in the future.
That's interesting. That's good.
But like, you know, when like talking about your son, and I'm thinking about the kids too, like, do our kids even care what we do? It's like so funny to even think about. Do they even think about it? I don't even know.
They don't know. It's like they know I'm in real estate, but they don't know really what I do with real estate. I have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the 5-year-old thinks my wife does something with law. It's something funny, but I can't remember, and she doesn't know what I do. But it's little kids are interesting,
No
but
doubt.
they're empowered to make so many decisions at a very early age nowadays. Where I remember my parents were like kind of whipping the chain on like, you're doing this, you're staying forward. Where now it's like they're empowered to make their own decisions at least at our school at age 5 and 10.
And this is a total sidebar, but like I've been talking, like aside, we'll get back to our real estate, no doubt. But the parenting thing lately has been really intense in my house, and everywhere I go now, that's one of our main conversations with whomever I'm talking to. And then I hear it on other podcasts. Like I was listening to Matthew McConaughey on Smart List this week.
Right.
The first conversation was all about parenting. It's like
Right.
everyone is like dealing with stuff. It's you have 4 kids, right?
Yeah. So we have 4 children. The oldest is 31. The second is 29. And then my wife and I took a 9.5-year break, and we had 2 more children. So we go boy, girl, boy, boy.
Wow.
And my wife works at the Norwood School in Bethesda. And so she sees young children every day and their parents and that interaction. I would just say everyone's got to chill out with their children. Everything's going to work out just fine. And I think that we as adults feel so much pressure to be successful and make a lot of money and do everything just perfectly. That's not ingrained naturally in a child. And I think that parents put a lot of that on their children very early in life. And so, we've just tried to be very relaxed with our kids. Yeah, they know they've got responsibilities. One thing that I think is really funny is hearing about high school kids whose parents will continue to do a lot of their homework, or at least be a big part of it.
Yeah.
And we got out of the homework business like in kindergarten. And that to me was the smartest thing we ever did, because it meant that the children were taking care of all of that.
No, that's smart. I mean, a couple of things with that, and I know that we're off the beaten path here, but
Although I'm sure our listeners are like, anyone with kids, when they
No,
start
they
hearing
get
people talk
this.
about parenting, they go right in. I'm telling you.
so like our little guy's, he's in 5th grade now. Last year in 4th grade, they were doing math, and it's not the typical math like you're doing triple digits or whatnot, where you just add 6 plus 6 is 12. It's like there was one of those like shorts on like TikTok or Instagram. It's like telling someone that comes to the front door, I need you to go around the block, jump the fence, knock on the back door before you come to the house. The kids get these math problems with instructions not to do 6 plus 6, but like to break it down into like different areas and to get the number. And it's like, I don't even understand how they're doing the math these days. It's so confusing. But also going back to like how they're growing up, like our little guys, girl and boy, are growing up in Washington, D.C., urban setting with all these electronics. I grew up in West Virginia, rural West Virginia, where we were going outside, playing tag, hide and go seek, tin can alley, building forts, and all of that. We had no electronics. I think I had a Nintendo. So like, it's just a different way of growing up. And even like trying to parent them in an urban setting with all these like electronics devices. And we're always on our watch, phone, iPad, or whatnot. So
Yes.
it's tough.
So we delayed giving our children phones pretty late. And they were like the 1 or 2 kids in their classes who didn't have phones yet.
What
And
age did they get the phone?
I want to say it was like 7th or 8th grade,
Right.
really. I don't know what kids get now, but we tried to limit that as much as we could. It's hard, though, because we noticed when they got it, like they fell right in line with all their other pals.
Right.
They're always looking down. But, we tried to limit it as much as we could.
Yeah.
It's hard because they're the only ones in school, right? So
It's the peer pressure, and I know, and then they're always on your case about it. You just have to hold the line. If it's like your decision as a parent for that, they're not going to miss anything. They're going to have plenty of years to be buried in their phone like us. Believe me.
your kids have the phone?
Neither of them have a phone right now. No.
Yeah. I mean, and it's tough because like our line of work is, I mean, I can do everything that I need to on this phone. I can do the research for the client. I'm talking with the client, texting an email. I can draft the contract and DocuSign all on the phone. So they see me on the phone and they're like, well, why can't I have a phone? Or why, what? They don't get it that I'm working. I keep saying I'm working. They're like, yeah, right. You're on Instagram
TikTok.
or what up, TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, all right. Back to real estate.
back to real estate.
Sorry, Corey.
The more mundane stuff.
But I was reading your bio and I did see you have 4 kids, so I knew that like there was some parenting advice somewhere from you for sure.
Lots of it.
Yeah. So you've been in the industry over 30 years. Tell us about like how you built your business. I mean, I'm sure you have a huge network of great referral clients and past people you worked with. Like, tell us about like what you're doing now after being such an experienced agent to like market, stay in touch with people. How do you keep it all cohesive?
So I've always been in real estate in a team environment. You know, with the former company, we had about 20 agents. And when I joined TTR Sotheby's International Realty 10 years ago, all those agents came over with me. So I still have 16 active agents. We just had 3 agents join us last week. So actually,
Wow.
We're probably up to about 18. And then I've got another 4 who are on referral licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always approached things sort of as a team, and what that includes is a lot of training and a lot of communications with my agents to try to, get them as successful as I possibly can. And this is all with my doing things also. And it's a tug between those two in my mind. Could I have just gone on my own and just crushed it that way, or done it more of a team thing? As I get older, I just turned 60. I think the idea of having a bigger team where I'm sort of the Rock of Gibraltar and the Oracle of Delphi for all things, I think that's going to be helpful to me as I, get a little bit more flexible with my time and travel and things like that.
I hear you. That's like being like a legacy name like that, and then also getting to an age where you don't want to run around and really do all the day-to-day stuff. Although a lot of realtors have trouble letting go of this.
It's very hard to do that, yeah. But for example, I'll do open houses when I first have a listing, the first weekend, but then I really want my teammates to have the opportunity to meet agents. One thing we're doing is we're in this market that's a little bit slower right now, we're having very long open houses from noon to 5, 2 shifts. So one agent will take it from noon to 2:30 and the next one from 2:30 to 5. It makes the seller very happy that the house is open that long on a Saturday and a Sunday. Plus it gives the opportunity to the agents to meet buyers.
Right.
So, but that would, if I tried to do 10 hours of open houses the first weekend, I mean, that would be very difficult for one person.
That's an interesting strategy because I would think the opposite, but you're, again, in a different market than we are. I always try to do 2 hours or even 1 hour, to squeeze it to where the open house feels bigger and there's more people coming because there's only that 1 or 2 hour window. But again, you're in a different market. You're in upper Northwest going into Maryland. So I'm assuming the open houses from 12 to 5 are well attended.
They're very well attended, yeah. And basically we're just trying to turn the house into like a department store and have people walk in. And I figure the longer time we're open, the more opportunity we're going to have for one-on-one conversation in hopes of converting the looker into a potential buyer.
That's an
That's
interesting
a really
strategy.
great strategy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like
Did
that.
not ever think of that. But I also to note on that, you're talking about squeezing the time window, and I find myself doing that as well because I just want to get the people as focused as possible, the focused buyers, into the place when I say it's time.
Right.
But for a lot of houses, so if you have a house in a more suburban setting where you might have a family type buyer, I can tell you right now, and we all know Saturdays and Sundays, there's activities planned, right? So getting your family to the open house or just getting away from the family to go to an open house, if it's between 1:30 and 3:30, that might not be enough time to get there, So if he's open 5 hours, you got a much bigger window.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And on your team, so can you tell us a little bit about the team as far as team meetings, back-end support, admins, things like that?
So we've got 2 admins who help with everything marketing related, social media related. They're kind of the backbone of the organization. We meet once a week, Thursdays at 10 o'clock, and really it's a mixture of sales and training. It's very hard for people who aren't at the level that you two guys are and that I am at to stay sharp when they're not doing as many transactions or, are showing as much property or writing as many offers. So my goal in this training is to keep my agents as sharp as possible. I'm reviewing everything that they do before it's submitted, but it gives them more of a feeling that they know what's going on. And we talk about the market a great deal. What's hot, what's not, what they're seeing, other people's practices, so that we can incorporate what's working into what we do.
So what type of training would this be? Like this last week, what was the training topic?
The training topic this last week was the disclosure disclaimer document in the state of Maryland, and also the agency form in the state of Maryland. The 2 areas where most litigation takes place is agency and property condition. And so it's imperative that they know how those 2 documents need to be filled out and approached by our clients. So that's what we talked about then. But we'll run the gambit. I'll role play like how to greet people at open houses. My mantra is my people need to know the difference between an open-ended question and a closed-ended question. If they want information, they ask a question that's open-ended, which begins with who, what, where, when, and why. I spend 95% of my life asking open-ended questions of people because I want to learn from them rather than my listening to myself say something. But most importantly for realtors or anybody in sales, to stay true to yourself, you can be yourself the whole time, but you must understand there's a very nuanced, precise time, and there's several of them during the relationship with your clients, where you must ask a closed-ended question to move the ball down the field. Such as if you go see 10 properties and they're getting out of the car and it's 4 o'clock, and they've talked about one property all afternoon, there's nothing wrong with saying, would you like me to put together an offer for that property that we saw earlier today? It's a relief to them to hear that question.
Yep.
If they don't want to do it, that's fine. And a lot of sales people will say, well, you got to ask that question like 4 times and handle objections. Look, I can understand what they're saying once. I don't need to circle back.
Right.
But that's so much more effective than just waving to them as they get out of the car and hoping that they want to go for something.
I agree with that. That's something I practice. I don't know if it's something that came naturally over time, but yeah, you're spending the time with them. You're listening to everything that they're saying. You're talking about everything in in an empirical way, but also in a figurative way as you're working with them. But it does come down to now we got to talk about the real deal. Are we doing this? Or are we doing another tour next week for 7 more properties? Right. And that's up to them. Yeah. But you gotta have that conversation. Can't be scared of that. Right. Yeah. Hear you. What does it take to be on your team? Are you hiring new agents? Are you training new people, or are you only looking for people who already have experience? I prefer to have people who have a little bit of experience at least. To me, that the biggest step is going from not being in real estate to being a little bit proficient. I don't really want to be the person to do that. I'd rather have the person who is a little bit more proficient that I can take to another level. And so that's who we've got. We've got some real superstars. We've got some people who aren't quite as active as the other people, who might be raising children, might be the second source of income in their families. But yeah, I prefer to have a little bit more experience than less. Yeah.
And looking on your HomeSnap, I'm assuming you give everybody their street credit in HomeSnap. So if someone on your team gets a listing or they're representing a buyer, you're letting them have the credit in MLS versus some teams. Ours is not like this. If someone, you eat what you kill, so you do the deal, you get the credit in MLS.
So I'm listed as the co-selling agent and the co-listing agent when people on my team do something. So when all the calculations are done at the end of the year, like if we sell $1 million house through someone on my team, I'll get credit for half of that and they'll get half of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that that's the best sweet spot because those sales will go, under their name.
Right.
But then also I'm getting some credit. And I know this is different from a lot of other team leads who insist that everything be put through their name. And like in Real Producers, how we get ranked on that, they're going to end up selling, a lot more than I will be shown as selling, even though at the end of the day, our teams might be selling the same amount.
Right.
But I find that I need to honor the effort that my agents are putting into these transactions. And I think that it would be haughty of me to just say I'm taking all the credit for it.
I totally agree. And I also think it gives them street cred when they're calling the listing agent and they present the offer. Because the first thing I'm doing as a listing agent is I'm going to pull up their HomeSnap and see how many deals they've done. And if the agent's done one, I'm like, who is this person? And I might relay that back to the seller. I've never worked with this buyer agent.
I don't know
They've
the name.
done one deal in the history, so this thing could go sideways versus agent B that's done 200 deals. They're savvy. If it starts to go sideways, we can probably keep it together.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah.
Corey, you've been in the business for a while, and whenever I see you, you're always present yourself completely professional. I don't think I've ever seen you not in a tie. Maybe at like a convention that's like somewhere like Las Vegas where it's appropriate to maybe not have a tie on. But you're very like business-like and old school in that way. So my question is, because we've evolved, we look, no tie.
No tie.
This guy's wearing sneakers, So how do you why always the suit and where did it start? Is this like business for you? It's just like this is the way it is?
So I always saw my dad leave the house in the morning looking sharp as anything. And so that obviously is the main influence. But also I went to a high school where we wore coat and tie every day. So I'm just in the habit of putting this on when I leave the house in the morning. It gives me more confidence to dress like this. I'd rather respect my my clients' view of me looking the best that I can rather than dressing down. I mean, I see some of our colleagues walking around in shorts and T-shirts, and I don't understand how a lot of people would think of them as professionals. So I don't know. It's trending towards a more casual workplace.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be a little bit overdressed than underdressed.
Yeah, and this is on the Hills. I was reading an article this week. I think the Senate or the Congress, whatnot, just passed, or it's an unofficial dress code rule where they can now go on the floor and wear shorts and hoodies. I can't remember what senator they were in a photo wearing gym shorts and a hoodie, and that's his favorite attire.
It's Fetterman from Pennsylvania,
Yes.
and he's just that's his habit.
Right.
And he's been sick for a long time, suffering from a stroke and the depression, and he only wears this kind of sweatsuit kind of and hoodie stuff. So his fellow Democrats, I think, are trying to make him more comfortable so he doesn't have to vote from the cloakroom.
Right.
I think it's temporary. I think it's just to accommodate him and his physical condition. I think they'll switch back after a while. That's quite an important chamber, and I hate everyone to be showing up in Spanx and Lululemon.
Yeah. Like the athleisure Senate, right?
Right.
Well, what I think about it, like I still very much wear like a suit every day of the week. I may not wear a tie as often as I used to, but for me, I never really know where the day is going to lead necessarily. If I have an appointment that I for sure know is like this is tie appropriate type of appointment, the tie is going to be on in the morning. But there are days where you don't really know. Like you could say, I could go a little more casual today, and then get called somewhere to see something, and you just don't know who you're going to meet.
Right.
And so I'd rather be over-prepared, as you were saying, right?
So I love it when I'll do anything for one of my listings. And so for Father's Day, I just got a battery-operated blower, and I've got a listing in Forest Hills right now, and there's a lot of tree debris.
Yeah.
So I wanted to blow it off before the weekend. So a few Fridays ago, I was there. It was like, 95 degrees. Here I am in my blue shirt, my tie. I took my jacket off, but I'm like blowing the hardscaping around the house. And like, I get back in the car and like my blue shirt's like all sweaty. I'm like, wow. But
Yeah.
maybe should have saved this for
You left the
Saturday
tie
morning.
No, I can't tell you how many times I, dressed like this or in a tie, hot out, and I get somewhere. I do the same thing. I show up at a listing and I'm like, it's dusty in here. And like I will go to the hardware store nearby or something and get like a Swiffer duster and start pulling cobwebs down, and your shirt's coming out and you're sweating. It's just, it happens, right?
Yeah.
And the best is if you're all dressed up in your, best attire, and you go in and there's like some huge 100-pound dog that's been
Jumps right on
outside,
you.
jumps right on you. And I'm good about that because I go to the listing appointments with Rob. And if I hear that, because you knock on the door and you can just hear the
The size of the
like,
dog.
I let Rob go. Like the dog attacks Rob. Rob's like, I love this place. This is great with dogs. I'm like, I'm allergic to dogs. Can you please put it outside?
It's like
So
good dog cop, bad dog cop right there.
the only thing that I'll say on the attire, and I got this very early on, it's like I like having shirt and jacket, slacks, or a suit with no tie. The one thing I don't like is the tie with no jacket, because it's like you didn't finish the outfit. You're like a used car salesman or a tech person, and you see that every once in a while. Someone told me that like very early on. It's like, if you're going to wear the tie, wear the jacket. It's better off to not wear the tie and wear the jacket, or no tie and jacket. So
It
it's
is
like,
really funny what gets ingrained into us when people say certain things about clothes, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a long list of weird stuff like that we could talk about that people
Yeah.
have said to me over the years, and I still think about it every morning. It's so
I
weird.
do like the ethos in our company, TTR Sotheby's International Realty, that they support sort of dressing more formally.
Yeah.
I like going to the office and seeing other people making an effort on that.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't see is going into the office in your gym shorts and T-shirt and things like that. Like if you're coming into the office, dress professional.
Yes.
Corey, one thing we were talking about before the podcast started was you have a spot on WTOP regularly, right?
So it's not anything formalized.
Okay.
So I have a great friend from high school, and he used to run NBC4 WRC on Nebraska Avenue, and he ran it for many years. But that's a high intensity position, and several years ago he decided to step back from it. And so what he does is he represents people, trying to make their media presence stronger and better. So periodically, Frank Kaskin, my good friend, will pitch ideas to local media and even national media. And so primarily Jeff Claybaugh, the business reporter at WTOP, will call me up, but also Dimitri Sotis will call up, and we typically will do just a telephone interview. It lasts maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and then they slice and dice it to fit into the time period that they need to fill. So yeah, I've been blessed to have that on WTOP. Then I've also been on Channel 4 WRC, but mostly on Fox 5. That's been mornings, usually like at a 7:30 or 8:30 slot, and also evenings at like a 10:45 slot. And I'd like to go into the studio if it's possible. Many times during COVID, I would just do it from the office because I've got a better camera and set up there, do it on Zoom. And then the real icing on the cake was earlier this year when I was asked to be on CNBC's Power Lunch, which was an international audience. It was probably a 5 to 7 minute spot with Kelly Evans and Dom Chu, and it was amazing. And so many people from around the country pinged me right after it saying, hey, we just always have CNBC on the TV in the office, and there you were. So that was very exciting.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome. I want to dive into this a little bit. So did Frank help you get those other spots on
Yes.
like ABC, CNBC?
He's done it all.
He's done everything.
He knows a lot of the players in the local and national media and pitches these stories about typically current market conditions and recent government numbers that might affect our business.
And then as far as you've been doing it for a long time, have you seen anything materialize from it as far as like, I saw you on WTOP, I read about you in the Washington Business Journal, you're always quoted, I want to sell my house with you or I want to buy with you.
So I can't pinpoint one sale from that, but I can tell you it greatly enhances my feeling of confidence on the part of potential sellers and buyers when I tell them that I do this. And, I'll drop in kind of a name drop. Like I was on Fox 5 last Friday and I talked about what we're talking about right now.
Right.
I'll say that to a prospective seller.
Absolutely.
And, there are not many people who can say that.
Right.
And that gives them a great amount of confidence that I kind of have gone to the next level with my knowledge of real estate.
But I was going to say also, I don't know which spot it was recently, but I think you were talking about the market. I don't know if it was like within the last few weeks, but we were just also talking about how the market is kind of like a little funky in some spots, and we're not, we can't sugarcoat this. The reality of numbers is the reality, right? But I think you said something on the air that was like a little bit like sort of down, and usually as realtors we have to be like, hey, the market's doing great. Like if you're a seller, you can blah blah blah. That's how we are.
Yeah.
But you were kind of a little brutal, honest, and so when you're doing these things, are you off the cuff, or are you thinking about like, I really want to convey like what's going on in my business, or how are you really looking at it?
So I think my long-term success at doing media is based on my being honest about what I see in the context of my 36 years of doing this. If I were to go in there each time and say, yeah, it's a great time to buy, you got to always get on the train and build up your equity, and that every market is just up 10 or 15%, I'd lose my credibility. I'm seeing a major shift in our market over, really, it started when Fed Chairman Powell in November of 21, in his question time, he's going to have one today after they announce what their policy will be. He has a press conference. And in that press conference, he signaled that they were about to engage in a long sustained increase of the Fed funds rate. And we're dealing with that right now. It's exactly what they wanted to do to slow down real estate and to slow down the economy, to pull back the slack of all the stimulus that they put into the economy to have us survive COVID. And so, yeah, I think that people like when I'm being very honest, and it could be sometimes it's a little brutal on our industry, but, it's...
Well, we don't... Okay. And we're... As real estate agents, there are things that we can do within our business to help a property sell or help a buyer make a decision. But the market is the market. And the overall numbers and the overall effect of the trends kind of take care of themselves. We don't control that. And so if you explain that to someone, if you have numbers in front of you, say, here's the trend, this is what is happening, and it was affected by this or caused by this, you're just being honest. You're just telling them the truth.
I totally agree. And they need to hear that, because if you put a property on the market for, let's say, the same price as a neighbor down the road, and they've got pretty similar properties, and the neighbor sold for $1 million and your listing's priced at $1 million, but it sits on the market for 4 or 5 weeks, we haven't done anything differently. We prepared all of our marketing materials the exact same. We're representing it the exact same. We're communicating with our fellow realtors the same way. We're trying to get it sold, but the market may not support that price anymore. And so, yeah, sometimes prices go flat for a long period of time, and sometimes they go down. The best example of this in our lifetimes was the crash of '08. So yeah, I think it's imperative that we be as upfront with people as possible.
One follow-up question here on the media component, whether it's Frank or some other media person, is this a cost to the agent if someone wants to get involved and kind of get their name out and about? Do you pay Frank or another media platform to get your name out there?
So yes, I do pay Frank, and but what I've done is I've pulled back on certain other marketing expenses in order to, boost this as much as I can. For example, I've cut back on print magazine advertising. In all my years, I could never point to an actual deal that I got off of a print ad. And yes, it makes the sellers feel great when I put a house out there, but that's not going to sell a property. And when I do a general ad about, myself or the team or whatever, again, that's just, I'd rather have the reprint of that ad and put it in my listing package so that they see that I do that. But it really doesn't have a great return. But I do get a better feeling of return on these media spots.
I'm all in on the media thing, and if you're going to be allocating resources for marketing, I think that's the way to go. I really do. I mean, obviously, we're into this, and I'm into my TikTok and Instagram. That's like media in a smaller sense. If you're on TV and radio, even though those are still older forms of media in our current world, people still they see it.
Mm-hmm.
It is big. It's so funny how the local news, like Channel 4, Channel 5 news, how many people they watch the news. They still do.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing how many people will say, "Hey, I saw you last week," and it's totally out of the blue.
Well, plus they repackage it for their website or they repackage it for social media, and it's a lot.
It's always out
It's a
there.
lot of hits.
It really adds to the credibility. So I was on with Holly Morris last Friday morning. We posted the interview. It was, I think, 4 to 5 minutes on LinkedIn. We've had over 2,300 impressions in 5 days since we posted it. That's pretty cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great segue just in general going into the marketing. So you said you're not doing the publications. The media component is your bread and butter, so to speak. But what else are you doing? You mentioned LinkedIn. Are you doing Instagram, TikTok, just listed?
Mailers. What's your plan?
Yes, we do everything but TikTok, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got a TikTok account, but I haven't embraced it as much as our colleague Daniel Hyder has.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have an Instagram presence daily. We do have a company that handles that for us. We have a mix of about 80% lifestyle posts and 20% real estate posts, or within that 20%, not just our listings and sales, but people on the team, or community service things that we're doing. Facebook, yes, there's a presence there. Basically, what I want is when I'm introduced to somebody, it's just how I buy something. If I'm about to buy something, I want to research it on the internet and see if it's still something I want. So it's imperative for realtors to be in all these spots so that when you're introduced to them and they look you up, they can see that you're the real deal in all of these venues.
Right. That's smart.
I totally agree.
Max, are you on, or either one of you, are guys on Threads? We had our meeting yesterday, and this came up, like getting into Threads and getting our team on Threads. Threads is Twitter's or X. What is it?
It's Meta's version of it's Meta's version of Twitter essentially,
Twitter,
or X.
Yeah. But are either of you guys on?
So
Threads?
When Threads first hit, when they first launched it, everyone was checking it out, and they were over there, and it integrated really well because if you already had a Facebook or Instagram account, it was essentially the same as the Threads account. There was no new setup, so you could just like pop over to Threads and start like searching around, and your feed was already sort of structured. And for me, I've never been a Twitter or X guy anyway, so like going over to the Threads is I'm not putting any time into it.
Right.
If someone wants to take the reins on that on your team and they're really into Threads and the interactions they're doing there, then they would probably be a little bit of a trailblazer right there because it's a new platform. And it's similar to like what you were talking about, Hyder on TikTok. He was probably on TikTok before anyone else in our area, not to mention the country, getting flashy looking videos and trying new things. Obviously catapulted his followers, right? And same for me on TikTok, not at that level, but spent a couple years on there doing it, and now it's saturated. So if you're jumping on a new platform like Threads now, this would be the time to do it. That's my only thought on that. It might, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if it's a newer platform, so there's opportunity.
Right.
So we've not embraced Threads. I am on X, and I typically will put out government numbers and try to interpret how it might affect us. I think that people want to have information rather than anything that's more about me personally. People yearn for great information that they can act on, and that's how I use X.
Okay.
Yeah, content driven.
Yes.
Again, this goes into the marketing, but one of my favorite times of the year is like your client parties and things like that. Do you guys have any client appreciation parties that you've done in the past, or any tips you can share with our listeners?
So one of our agents, Jen Fritz, who lives in Spring Valley, just had a great event on last Friday called Sip and Scoop, where she hands out a ticket for a margarita for the adults and a ticket to their children to get ice cream at Millie's. And there must have been over 100 people at this event. And it's totally, not what we'd see from a realtor kind of thing. So that's been a very successful one for Jen. What I will mostly do is around the holidays. I have a company called Fur Spirits in Maine that makes the biggest, fattest wreath. And I send that to many, many, many of my past clients. Fur Spirits had trouble during COVID finding people who would go into the forest to cut, the pine. And, I guess it's pine.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Douglas fir pine, right?
Douglas fir, yeah.
Douglas fir.
So for a couple years, they couldn't fill my order. So I've just done poinsettias recently. But that's my main expense with past customers. I don't really have a party. I don't know. I just haven't felt comfortable having that kind of big event each year. But I think people do love this kind of holiday gift.
So that type of gift, is it mailed directly from the vendor to the house, or is it something you get all of them and then you're hand delivering to all of them?
So I would love to be able to park my car, grab it, knock on the door, say hi to my friends and clients, but I couldn't do it at this point. So it's coming directly from the vendor. And, I have a note in it so that they know it's from me and thank you and all of that. But, I couldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Corey, you put in a lot of hours and time into this business. Since you were a teenager, you were explaining you had a license. What keeps you driven and going and you're still like at the top of the game? Like, what keeps you driven and passionate about it?
Paying private school bills.
There you go.
That's that's been it. To me, it's the biggest decision that a couple can make is to whether or not to send their children to public school or private school. We chose with our 4 children to go private school. So I am in about the 75th year of 80 school years of private school education. If I didn't have to pay those schools, I probably would be on a beach somewhere. But, that's just what we decided, and we wouldn't have traded it for anything. They're great children. They're smart. They're wonderful. And not to say that the public schools are not, but that's just what we decided to do. So that's the main financial reason that I do this. But that only goes so far. If I were just waking up saying, I got to make this or that, that would burn me out. I just love it. I love the market. I love the people that I work with. I love my clients, buyers and sellers. I love watching the market. I love how we are part of a much bigger part of the economy. I love watching, national and international economic trends. So I also get a great amount of, inspiration from my dad, who I saw do this for many years. There were other agents who did it well into their later years. A guy like Oliver Cowan. I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was an African-American agent who specialized up 16th Street. That guy was dressed to the T and, did this for like 50 years, and he was really successful. Mark Fleischer, he just retired or semi-retired,
Right.
but he did it for years, and he showed up every day ready to rock and roll. Cal Ripken is a hero of mine. The fact that that guy could play in every game for all those years. Sure, he had injuries that he would, have to take the field. Consistent guys like Darryl Green, who used to be on the Redskins. These are the guys who I really emulate.
Yeah, it's like there's a level of stoicism to anything of importance like that. You have to once you commit yourself, you don't give up. You keep doing it, right?
Right.
There's ups and downs, and like I love the Cal Ripken analogy too. You think the guy wasn't injured? He was. There's
For sure,
There's pain,
yes.
man.
Yeah.
You're an athlete,
Right.
but he's
What,
there.
182 games a year or 100, whatever it is.
162.
162,
Yeah.
like for sure. Yeah.
Oh, and playing his position, he wasn't just like a DH. He was a shortstop.
yeah.
And then a little bit of third base too.
Yeah.
So Corey's the Iron Man. You got that.
Corey is the Iron Man.
Bam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a legacy agent. Is there any legacies behind you? Any of your boys are dabbling in or thinking about real estate?
So our oldest just started law school, and so he's going to go into law. Our daughter is a second grade teacher, and then we've got a sophomore in college and a freshman in college. And I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not pushing it at all. I want them to do that. So we talked a little bit earlier about pushing.
Right.
Yeah, I want it to be, off their own. So my real thing in life as I get a little bit older is this term self-actualization, where a person reaches the embodiment of their greatest capabilities. And that's all I'm about at this stage in my life for anybody, whether it's the custodian at the office or my children or my colleagues, whatever. I want to do whatever I can do to make that person realize their full potential. And I think that's a really fun way to go through life, as opposed to like keeping score and how am I doing. Just forget all that and just be as good a person as you can possibly be.
That's a term I haven't used in a while. But wasn't the book The Celestine Prophecy? Was that the one that goes over?
I don't know that one.
That was one that was. I think that's where I was introduced to that. But it was very like self-actualization was like super buzzy in like the late '90s, early 2000s. But there's always some version of pop psychology that leads to that. It's like you need to stay focused and like appreciate the focus and be whatever that is. Like I guess it's like manifesting this, or there's different terminology for different eras. But I think that was the book. But I agree with you. It's like it has to do with the Iron Man thing. It's like be the best at what you're doing. And sometimes it changes a little bit, but stay focused,
Right.
Keep working at it. There's
Yeah.
ups and downs.
Yep.
For sure. I love it.
You could be like Aaron Rodgers and go into the darkness retreat.
Well, he's got, I don't follow
sports, right?
I don't even, I know I follow sports a little bit. Like I love
Come on
tennis.
now, you
I don't
follow
follow
sports.
NFL as much as I used to. And then is it true though, Aaron Rodgers, like he was like going to be like he was the new quarterback for the Jets. Like it was a big deal. And then he didn't get to break his ankle in the first.
He tore his Achilles in the first game.
Okay.
Like I think it was like the fourth play from
Fourth play.
scrimmage.
Yeah.
Tore his Achilles.
Yeah. A lot of hype right there.
Oh,
Too bad.
So tough. But their backup, Zach Wilson's won them 2 games, I think. But it's going to be tough at age 38 to come back from a ruptured
so.
Achilles tendon. I hope he can do it. He says he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I know 2 people who have ruptured their Achilles over the last 2 years, and yeah, it's a 1-year process essentially.
Yeah. That's a tough comeback for that, for that sport,
Yeah.
that industry. Yeah. Well, Corey, we're at the end here. Really appreciate you coming down here today and sharing everything with us. And Brent, I don't know. We had another conversation one day. I mean, we always end up talking about some sports things, and now we got parenting conversations. Like, do we need a side podcast? Like
Parents and sports and pets. We just got a new it's like a 2-pound Morkie. We went up to New York and picked it up. So
Okay.
we could probably do off-ball topics for sure.
I swear to God, I think the parenting podcast, like
It's
those
tough.
those do well.
That's a
Yes.
winner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had an all-out battle this past weekend. I mean, I pushed my little guy too much in tennis, and this is, again, we did 2 weeks at the JTCC at the end of the summer. He did tennis all summer. And then we did 2 weeks in Florida at Rick Macy, like very intense, private lessons, all out. Went to New York during the U.S. Open for Little Mo's, which is a big regional tournament. And then I think I just pushed him too much. Came back for Labor Day. The next day on Tuesday, he goes right back into school, and then 3 hours of tennis after school every day for 2 weeks. And he was
Hardcore.
like, I'm done. I was like, all right, well, just sell all your stuff. I mean, I had a hard time with it.
Mhm.
And my wife was like, you need to chill out, calm down. I'm like, spent all this time and money
It's
for
a-
3 years. It's a thing.
It's okay. It's his life though.
Yeah.
It's like even though he's still a very much a youngster. I mean, he's a human and he's going through whatever he's going
Right.
through. So
But
Yeah,
as parents, like, you got to step back and let them make their own decisions.
Yeah,
like
he'll
you're doing
circle
with your
back.
kids.
He
Yeah,
just
he'll-
needs a break.
Right.
And school's starting, which is always a kind of a different time of year.
Right. Yes.
But no, he'll be an all-star.
yeah.
Tennis is like, you guys might be a little too young, but in the 1970s, there was nothing like a heavyweight bout. That was like the pinnacle of sports. And, you would pay to go to the Capitol Center in Landover to watch it on closed circuit. They didn't have cable or anything like
You'd
that.
pay to go watch it at the Capitol Center to
Yes.
watch it.
And it wasn't even at the
Yeah,
Capitol
no,
Center.
you're watching
it
on
was
the
in
screen.
Vegas. You were watching it on the telescreen, they called
Wow.
it. And tennis is just like that. It's mano a mano, or woman against woman, but
Right.
it's a battle.
Yeah.
It's such a great sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress though for the young athlete. There's a lot to go through mentally playing tennis and especially playing matches. So there's some stress there.
There's stress there. Yes.
So
But
yeah.
you guys, it's great to be with you. Thank you again for having me on.
Really appreciate it. And then Brent's going to hit you with some rapid fire questions.
Awesome.
So here we go. First question, changing it up a little bit. When you walk into a coffee shop, what's your drink?
I get a cafe au lait. I don't like coffee on its own. It's too kind of strong and bitter. So I have to load it up with milk or cream and one sweet and low.
This is a new one. Our team just did this yesterday, and it's kind of funny. But you just got called to Broadway. Your stage name is the street you grew up on is your first name. The name of your pet is your second name. So example, I grew up on Olin. My first pet was Chi-Chi. My stage name is Olin Chi-Chi.
Okay.
Curtis Oliver.
Curtis Oliver.
That's perfect. That's a leading man right there.
Yeah.
Curtis
No go.
Oliver. Max, what's yours?
Blackie Malon.
Yeah. Yeah, probably make it on Broadway, but somewhere else.
Yeah. I've been over that one before and I
Right.
was like, whoa, that's a tough one.
Right. What are you binge watching right now?
Jack Ryan on Amazon.
I love that one.
It's based on the Tom Clancy novels.
Good series.
What is your favorite restaurant?
I love the Capitol Grill, and also in New York, La Grenouille. It's a French restaurant, and I've only been there 2 or 3 times in my life, but it's a fun experience.
It's amazing. Okay, so number 5, where do you like to vacation outside of D.C.? Not that you vacation in D.C., but
So every summer we go up to the northwest part of Michigan's Lower Peninsula to a small town called Leland, which is near Traverse City.
Mhm.
My mom's family is from Toledo, and so a lot of people from the Midwest go up to this little town. It's right on Lake Michigan, and it's beautiful. It's at the westernmost point of the Eastern time zone. So in the summer, it stays light until after 10 o'clock. So you can tee up for a round of golf at 7 and get it finished if you wanted to. It's a long drive. It's about 13 hours, but there are now direct flights from Reagan National to Traverse City. But that's where my mom and dad, now my mom, has a house, and so all of us go up there and
You
spend
stay
a
at that
couple
house.
weeks. Yes.
Interesting. I never thought about that. As the East Coast thing. So if you're on the East Coast and it's like 5 o'clock and you go a few blocks over and it's 4 o'clock. Yeah, that's wild.
Well, speaking of Michigan, though, my sister's husband, my brother-in-law, his family's from Michigan, and his sister has a house up there. And my sister went up there for the first time, and it looked like the ultimate summer getaway because the climate's not as intense, and
Right.
yeah, sounds
It's
beautiful.
awesome. Yeah, it's like 80 degrees, low humidity, a little bit of a breeze off Lake Michigan, and very few bugs. There's no salt water, so it's fresh water. The sun sets over Lake Michigan, so it's like you're in California. It's
You gotta check it out.
amazing.
You guys go out on the lake, fishing, boating?
We do, yeah. So for Lake Michigan, we mostly just, go to the beach. Every once in a while, we'll get a charter boat to go out salmon fishing. But then there's a smaller lake called Lake Leelanau, which is kind of connected by a small river to Lake Michigan. And we'll do tubing and water skiing and fishing more
That's
on
cool.
that.
Sounds great. We'll see you up there next summer then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Corey.
Matt McCormick has a place not too far away.
All right.
That's
A little Realtor Haven.
Yeah.
Corey, great to see you. Thanks for coming down. Really appreciate having you.
Thank you again, you guys.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.